Welcome to Healthy Trust with holistic nutritionist and emotional eating coach Lily Aronin. This class on trust in God follows the classic workgate of trust. Walk with us as we enter, as King David in Psalms called it, the tower of divine protection, and pull up a seat.
Of doing. So on page 98, having established the necessity for a person to engage in various means to obtain his livelihood and other needs, the author now addresses the type of occupation a person should use, as well as the proper attitude to it. And so let's just pause here for 1 second. What's an occupation, right? An occupation is a job. How would you define an occupation?
Well, something obvious that brings you parnasa is one thing.
Right? Something that brings you parnasa. But what about being, right, a stay-at-home mother, right? Like, what about all of our jobs that we do as women
Sure.
that aren't paid? Is that an occupation or is that a role? Does it mean, because remember, this is an English translation, does it mean occupation or does it mean role? Does it mean both?
I think it means something that you occupy yourself with.
That's a good point. So what's the Hebrew word that it's using? I don't have the book in front of me.
חיוב, כיוון שהתברר חיוב, הגידול את כי אין כל חייב.
Is it just me? I don't know. It's gone patchy again. I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Stacey, can you hear?
you're patchy, Lily.
That's
I'm not sure.
weird. I don't know what's going on. I'm not moving my arm. I don't know what's going on. Let me move to my computer. See if it's hold on. I hear the birds chirping quite loud.
That's me. I'll mute.
Hold on. I'm gonna take it off Wi-Fi. Tell me if this is better. Is it better quality not on Wi-Fi?
Yeah, it seems so.
Okay. If there's a problem again, you let me know. Welcome back, Lala. Okay. So we were just discussing before we start this section, it doesn't have in the Hebrew this word occupation because it looks like it's from the organization of the book that they entitled this section choosing an occupation. So let's look back. So I think we're saying that various means to obtain a livelihood. So it isn't just talking about a role. It's talking about something specifically that is going to make you money. Something, and if not to make you money, then something which is going to provide for you. So then in that way, it could be your marriage, your children, because it could, think about a servant. A servant actually, like, doesn't always get paid. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, right? Like, we're servants. It's interesting. I guess the difference between a servant and a slave is that he gets paid. Since it's been demonstrated above that people are obligated to make efforts to engage in means of obtaining their livelihood and other needs. So now it says, right? So now we're back to other needs. So is it really occupation just job, or is it occupation and role? Or as Stacey said, this is anything that we occupy ourselves with, which is even more interesting, right? Because there are different stages of our life, and this Bitachon concept applies when we're mothers. What about when our children are grown? What about when we're not married? We are all still have stuff occupying us all the time. So it's interesting when we crack open this word occupation and look at it differently. We still have to have a livelihood. We have to have some means of support, no matter where that support is coming from, whether it's coming from investments at some point and we're retired, whether we're actively working. There are things that occupy ourselves with, and then there is livelihood. Some of those means are relatively easy because they require little exertion. Selling merchandise in a store, engaging in types of handiwork that involve little labor, like sewing or weaving or writing, or safeguarding merchandise until it goes up in value, right? Or like owning real estate, right? That's going to go up in value. Those who contract sharecroppers and other workers to work the land for them, and those who are responsible to oversee workers who work the land. However, there are many means of obtaining a livelihood that involve much toil and exertion. Tanning skins, mining iron, copper, lead from the depths of the earth, refining silver, lifting heavy coals, regular long distance travel, working the land, plowing. So today, what are those fields? We have art, we have agriculture. I mean, some people would say even being in high tech and working the insane hours that they work is very taxing. Some people would say being a mother to young children, right, is so physically taxing. Being a kindergarten teacher, being a house cleaner, like there are jobs that are very physically taxing, and there are jobs that are less physically. So which type of occupation should we choose? And this is the really interesting part, is we get to choose. So many of us, I feel like, myself included, at different parts of our life, feel that we're always being placed. And it's true, Hashem is putting us in different places and in different things. But a lot of it is we get to choose. And sometimes when I heard a very interesting concept, that what is Hashem's rachamim? Rachamim comes from the word rechem, womb. Hashem's mercy is he takes what we want, what occupation we want, what life we want, what dream we have, and he puts it like a seed in a womb and allows it to mature and grow. And it's not that he gives it to us like this immediate miracle, right? It's that he creates a path towards it. He creates a womb to protect your dream while you grow towards it and create it. And I thought this very interesting here. It's saying that you have a choice. So if you have a choice, then you have to have a head on your shoulders when you choose what you're going to choose. And I think a lot of us have different parts in our life where we say, I don't have a choice. This is what it is. I don't have a choice, right? And sometimes the choice is so obvious to us, we don't consider it a choice. But really, we do have a choice. For a person who is physically strong but intellectually weak, it is appropriate that he chooses one of those occupations that require toil, but only as much as he can tolerate. And I think this goes back to Shulamit, what we were talking about last week, where we were talking about rest. And Hashem's saying, I gave every single individual a different amount of work they can tolerate. And there's nothing wrong with you if you're doing your best, because he decided how much any of us can tolerate. The first category of occupations mentioned above may be relatively easy, but they require skill. Therefore, a person who is unskilled should pursue the occupations in the second category that require work and suit their strength. And isn't this interesting? Because in our world today, wouldn't you say that if you looked at somebody and they said, look, I'm unskilled, you would say, well, go be skilled. Go get some skills, dude. You wouldn't say, go be happy doing something that doesn't require skill. If you have strength, go be happy, being a farmer. And it's something interesting that I think is here in Israel that isn't in other places, this agricultural, I'm sure it's also in America, and other places in the world, they have this, agriculture and farms and etc. But in the Jewish world, is there another place where you see kids at risk being sent to go work on farms and who go find themselves on farms and go find themselves working the land, kids who can't sit in school? Like, it's just interesting, that.
I saw about the Quakers, Lily.
Mhm.
Has anybody seen that? It was amazing. It was exactly what you said. It was kids at risk and adults, and they had all kinds of problems, and they sent them to live with the Quakers. It was called Return to Something. I have to find it. It's amazing. And over the course of a few weeks and months, they just became different people. And every single one of them dropped all their syndromes. They just lived simply on the land. And one of them was like completely in love with her chickens. It was really sweet.
It's so interesting, right? Because our modern society today, there really don't, do we Well, a choice. No, you have to be skilled. And if you're not skilled, are you valuable? Right? If you're not skilled in a highly skilled, intellectual, complex profession, are you valuable? And Hashem is saying, you're equally valuable. I don't care whether you choose to work on a farm and live simply, or you choose to be very skilled and in demand at a high living. Like, I don't think one is better than the other. That's really interesting. A person who is physically weak but has a strong intellect should not pursue those means of livelihood that
Can I
are out.
interrupt for a second? Can I
Please, go ahead.
interrupt?
I
Even
love
though
it.
I love your birds, Shulamit, it's making Lily's voice cut off.
Oh, I think because I spoke and I forgot to unmute again. Thank you for telling me.
Sure.
Okay. Conversely, a person who is physically weak but has strong intellect should not pursue those means of livelihood that tire out the body. Instead, he should turn to occupations that are easier on the body, so they will continually be able to engage in them. I'm in the first footnote on page 100. Intellectually weak versus a strong intellect. God guides everyone toward their occupation, the occupation that suits their personality and divine mission. Some need jobs that are easy to perform because it will give them the best opportunity to serve God. And God therefore guides them in that direction. For example, the patriarchs were shepherds because the secluded area and the absence of hard labor afforded them the opportunity to meditate on the presence of God. Joseph, however, was able to be viceroy of Egypt because his set of circumstances was not going to distract from his divine service. On the contrary, that was his divine mission, to channel the divine potential in Egypt's wealth, which was later used for the Mishkan, which was last week's Parsha, by the way. They're starting the building of the Mishkan. If you are afforded an opportunity, then that might be your method of earning a livelihood. If you are not afforded an opportunity, then that's God's way of steering you away from a particular line of work.
Can I say something, actually?
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you're talking about this now, because I actually wrote this on my journal, to cover my journal, because I was doing a lot of introspection over the Pesach. I'm not used to being without my family, and so I had a lot of time on my own, and I've done a lot of processing. And one of the things I came to is it's not about the money, it's about the wisdom. And I was thinking, like, is there anything, like, I was trying to get people to invite to come here because I'm cooking, and I thought it would be nice to celebrate together. And one of the days I didn't get anyone, and it was a bit desolate doing Yom Tov completely on my own. When you choose to, that's fine, but when you were thinking somebody would come, actually somebody was supposed to come and then they didn't, and then I was supposed to be invited to somebody, and then it turns out I got it the wrong day. And I just thought, like Yosef and Abraham, they all had their periods of just being alone, and maybe this is like a crucible, is that the right word, to develop things that I'm going to need. So I used to be a corporate lawyer, and I loved studying law. It was never anything that I thought I'd do, because I got married straight out of high school pretty much, and I didn't have any qualifications. So I was like, this is it, this is it, this is it. And then I burned out so badly, and it was such a horrible atmosphere. And I thought, well, that was a waste, and I was so cut up about all those years wasted. And also the art, when I studied art and then I never did anything with it. But now I'm a coach, and I'm painting, and I'm studying, and all those skills that from long ago are now consolidating into the one thing that I do. And so it's not like in olden days where you could only have the one thing. And I think it's beautiful that the Ramchal recognizes that and says, pay attention to the time, pay attention to what calls to you, pay attention to what doesn't call to you, pay attention to the circumstances that you're put in, pay attention to the circumstances you're not put in. They're all for you. All. Even when they feel a bit like, what? No, exactly that. Process that. That's so valuable, and it's been really valuable for me, I feel. It's going to enhance my understanding of life, of what I do, of what I bring to my clients. It's just broader. It's more forgiving. And that's all I got to say about that.
You know what I would love to see? You just gave me such a good idea. I would love to see affirmation cards with your art on them.
That's exactly what I'm doing. This is the
Yeah.
beginning of it. It's a deck. Yeah. It's a deck of not only affirmations, but it's also like not a tarot deck, but it's where people can take a pasuk that speaks to them. And when they pick it, and I had this in the middle of the night last night because I had a nightmare and I woke up and I was like, I'm going to get some salt and put it by my bed, and I did some sage. And then I noticed that my affirmation cards were there that I'd done for soldiers long ago. And I thought, oh, why don't I pick one? And do you know what it said to me? It said, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar ma'od v'ha'ikar lo lefachet klal. I'll translate for those who don't know. It means the whole world is a narrow bridge and the main thing is not to be afraid. And I was like, oh, thank you, Hashem. And I'd love to give the women that, everybody does it in their own way. And I'd love to give it to my women in an art, fun, weird Kabbalah way, with drawings, with paintings, why not? Even coloring cards where I do the outline and they can color.
Mm-hmm. Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. Okay. So exactly, it's really what he's talking about.
Thank you for that sort of validation. It's so interesting because that's literally what I'm doing I don't know if you could see,
I see.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. It's like, oh, that's perfect for affirmation cards. That's exactly what
That's crazy that you said that.
Yeah, I have a whole deck of them in small, but they've got a bit worn out, and I think, why don't I do a nice full new pack that's going to be professional, something that I can actually put on my website, something that people can buy, something that my coaching clients will have, and something for fun, just for fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Similarly, we find with other creatures that God ingrained the means that they sustain themselves into their very nature. For example, he ingrained in the nature of a cat to prey on mice, in the nature of the hawk to prey on birds that are fitting for it, and the nature of deer to prey on snakes. Similarly, there are certain birds that only prey on fish. In a similar fashion, God ingrained the nature of each and every living species a predisposition and a desire for one of the species of plants or living creature to serve as its source of food. Even the structure of the body and limbs of each species is specifically to make them fit for the consumption of the food that it is in their nature to eat, as is evidenced by the long mouth and the long legs of the bird that preys on fish, by the teeth and the sharp nails of the lion, and by the horns of the bull and the ram. However, those animals whose food is from vegetation, God did not give them the body parts to use as instruments with which to hunt and prey. When we observe, I'm on page 102. When we observe the animal kingdom, we see clearly how each species was created with a natural means of obtaining its sustenance, and how their bodies are designed in a way most suited for doing so. Similarly, different people are created with different natures, and characters are suited for different occupations. And I think especially today in our education system, in the corporate world, and all these different places, even societally, where we create the boxes of what it means to be good, what it means to be successful. And if you don't feel like you match into the box, I think you never feel this sense of what he's saying of our bitachon. Then you'll never feel that sense of, God created me perfect for this. And I feel sensitive to this because my husband and all my kids with ADHD, I really feel the sense of like, I'm not a match for this sometimes. This isn't, what's being asked of me is not my gifts, is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And yet I have to go through this whole process I don't have a choice, and yet I think even for people who aren't neurodivergent, my husband and I always talk and say, really, all of us are neurodivergent. This idea of a normal is really just an average. It's not like there's maybe a few people who are actually that exact thing, but everybody's on a spectrum. It's really just how outside that box are you, and also how good you are at masking this true self and your true nature, sometimes even from yourself, to know what is your proper thing that lights you up.
Lily, what you just now said, do you think you would ever have come to that deep, deep wisdom of what you just said without having been surrounded by a family with ADHD, though?
Definitely more so because, like, I mean, I grew up my mom and my dad and everybody, but I think I definitely think it's part of that knowledge. I think each time that, even the more I coach people, the more that I meet people, the more that I'm friends with people, the more that you really get to know people. And I think also, as Lala likes to say, the older we get, the more even your friends show you who they really are, right? When you're younger, still people are wearing masks in their friendships. It really takes time and circumstances to really have friends where you've had enough time and enough honesty and enough circumstances you've gone through together that all the masks are off, or more of them are off.
I also think that who's to say what's normal? Maybe all the people with ADHD are the ones, and the rest of us are, are actually not, are actually not
Neuronormative, I
doing the
call them.
thing. It's the whole definition of that the social constraints that we live by. And so I'm always saying one cannot define anyone else's happiness, because we all have such different, like, that we don't even know, like, what makes us happy in our 20s is totally different than in our 30s or 40s or whatever. And then we look back and we were like, oh my gosh, we were so happy then and we didn't even know it. And so, and then you've got all these people in your family, and we all have completely different, like, I don't know, completely different ways of viewing things. And sometimes you don't even know it. And for the longest period of time that someone is thinking, that person is off their rocker, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, it's me that's off my rocker. So there isn't any, like, I mean, I think kind of that's what's so magnificent. And then you get to the point when you actually can think that way. And then someone gets to be the adult in the room, or someone is the person who gets to say, sorry, it's my way. You have to think my way. And that's how it goes, because that's how we have to run, because there has to be some level of organization in this world. I mean,
Right.
We hope. So,
Right.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I actually look at it as a prism, whereas, there are all these, I'm working on the Sfirot now, because we're counting the Omer, and there's different colors and different senses and different feelings and emotions that come through with each week that we count. And when you look at Sfirot, they're actually rays that emanate from source. And the prism is what splits them into all the different colors that we can see, received color. But if you think about a color, let's say my aura, my chakra, or my glowing in the color purple, what I'm actually doing is I'm giving off the color purple, but I myself cannot receive the color purple. I'm receiving everything but. So it's almost like there are people in the world who are a certain way, and they will exhibit all these characteristics, but they're showing you all the things that they're not. It's almost like projections, that they're showing you the things that, I can't explain it very well. It's like you can look for the complementary color if you're looking for the secret to what's making them tick, because sometimes they're showing you what they're not capable of, and you'll trigger that by being that in front of them, and they'll be like, no, not receiving. They're not equipped for that.
Interesting.
Just something
Laura.
that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Laura, hand raised?
Yeah, my hand's raised. So there's a couple of things. One is, when a lot of this stuff was developed, the world was a very different place. And I think it was much more tolerant of people's diverse talents and their neurodiversity. The ADHD people were great hunters, and the people who could sit and study, they were the really good gatherers, and they could, do the crops. Then you had your bipolar people who were creative, who could like invent the wheel, right? And everybody could just naturally fall into what they were good at. And our society has gone so far out with making it, the only way you can be successful is if you go to college for 4 years and you get a job and you work from 9 to 5 and it's not true. I've got 4 kids who the word neurodiversity didn't even exist when they were growing up. My oldest is 35. Okay. She was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 6, which is almost unheard of in those days. And she's been medicated since then. And she became a preschool teacher for 2-year-olds because that matched her energy and her attention span. I have another kid who couldn't sit in a classroom, and he went and became a chef because he could get a college degree without sitting in a classroom. And now he works, you've probably heard of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. He went to one of their management training programs and he manages, right now it's a small, site, but eventually it'll get bigger because he doesn't have to sit still. He can go bouncing around from this thing to that thing and he can sell snow to an Eskimo. And so he keeps getting these great incentives because he's just selling everyone the insurance that goes with the cars, And so he's been able to find his real talent in the world. And, as I've watched my kids grow up, I've seen that, yeah, we've kind of felt like we had to push them into that 4-year degree because we're in the United States kind of thing. But each of them has gone a totally different way with it. And the other thing was that I did not have this illusion of all of them were going to go to Harvard. It was, let's find the best school to match each kid, because there are different schools for different people. And the Yeshiva world is much better about it than the secular world in terms of, having different flavors of schools. But, you need people to go to trade school, and you need people. I went to a nursing trade school in a hospital. You need these different kinds of education to make the world work.
Yeah. So true. So true. And I think it's also true in personality. We're told that there's right, some people are brought up in a house full of extroverts and they're in the introvert and they feel like they don't, like there's something wrong with them. And someone who's an extrovert who grows up in a house of introverts feels like there's something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And all of these things, he says, character traits and intellect and bodies, right? What's a healthy body look like, right? We can go on and on and on about there's reality, there's health, and then there's matching this outside aesthetic, right? Of mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Stacy.
And there's what combination of the other kids are in the home with you.
Yeah.
So there's that dynamic as well.
Right. Exactly. Right. If you grow up in a house of extroverts or introverts, or everyone's skinny, or everyone's I can't tell you how many times I've had clients that the most struggles are the single heavy kid, right, in the family. And often it's one of the parents and the other parent is very slim naturally. And then they're the one kid in the family with those genes. And they feel like something is, they feel like that ugly duckling in the swan waiting to turn into a swan their whole life. And it's so interesting. And I think all of us who grow up in this kind of world today have some form of this. And it's bitachon that allows us to unravel it, that allows us to surrender it, that allows us to release it. When it comes to also breaking down our limiting beliefs of how we see other people, of, well, that's not normal. She's not normal. They're not, good. And us and ourselves. And I had a really interesting thought on one of my walks over this week in Shabbat. And I was thinking about Rabbi Akiva, and he saw the water hitting the stone and slowly, right, making an impact on the stone. He was 40 something years old, and he said, if the water can impact the stone like that, and it just can take however long it takes, then I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to learn Torah, and I'm going to. And I kind of had this conversation with God on my walk, and I said, why did that turn into that? Like, I understand water's Torah, but he didn't know that. Like, what was it about this? And I was feeling this sense of like trying to process this whole month of this war, and then it's right, the ceasefire, and it's coming in, not coming in, and I had set aside today and tomorrow to go and to the beach and just journal and do kind of what Shulamit was saying, just processing it. And then it didn't work out today, and it didn't work out on Friday, and it didn't work out on Shabbos, and so I was trying to do it in the middle. Tomorrow I will be at a beach. I will send a picture, me at a beach with a journal processing. But I had this walk, and I was thinking, I was like, well, the rock isn't trying to not be a rock, and the water isn't trying to not be water. They're not trying to make a hole in the rock. They don't have this image of the perfect rock with this specific kind of hole that's going to go through the rock, and it's going to look a certain way. And when it looks a certain way, that is how you know you have succeeded. That's not what it is. The water.
I love that. Sorry, I just had to say, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that.
Water, and the rocks being the rock. And that's what us learning Bitachon is every day, is we don't have to do anything to make it work. We have to show up. We have to want. We have to allow the Bitachon to do its work. But we don't sit there as the rock wishing we were somebody else.
We let go of the outcome, is what you're saying. We show up and let go of the outcome. That's so beautiful. I love it. I was also thinking, if you don't mind me adding something, that just like, I've also been talking to God and walking, weirdly. And what I came up with was, when I'm stepping into the new version of me, because we're always stepping up into the new levels, if you're doing the inner work, you're like, can I, you can't really see yourself going from A to Z, but you can try to get from A to B. But even B feels wobbly sometimes, and you feel like, oops, whoops, I'm back to A again. What's going on? And part of me is like, I don't feel so comfortable being B. I've been A all my life. So where's A gone now? And I feel like, oh, where's she gone? Am I abandoning her? And you almost feel like a responsibility towards being A still, because where is she then? Like that little one. So what came to me was actually the story of Rabbi Akiva. And I was thinking, he just went one day at a time, and he just got used to it. It was like, there's another story about Rabbi Akiva, the one about him and the donkey and the flowers. Do you know that one?
Probably.
So, yeah, okay, it's a beautiful story. I use it in my coaching sometimes, because a couple of my clients, for some reason, I've not had very many men, but they all seem to be called Akiva. And I'm like, okay, I have a story for you. This is beautiful. And it literally is what they needed to hear. So it was basically about a story that I heard at the Medrash, that Rabbi Akiva, at first, when his wife Rachel was encouraging him to learn, he clearly wanted to, but he was really awkward about it. He was like, of course I want to, but that's never going to happen, right? I'm a shepherd. I'm like in my 40s. Am I 40 now? I don't know. Like, well, I would have to start from scratch, like literal scratch. So she's like, okay, and? So he's like, yeah, but like, how would I learn it? So she goes, well, there's a school, and you can go sit with the little kids and study with them Aleph Bet. So he's like, I'm not going to rock up at a nursery school and learn Aleph Bet. And she's like, okay, I have an idea for you. So she gave him a donkey and a stick and some mud and some flowers. And she said, take the flowers and plant them in the mud and put them on the donkey's back, and take the stick and go into the market. And he was like, you've lost the plot. And she was like, just do it and come home after and tell me what went on. So he went to the marketplace, and he came home, and he was like this little kid coming home from school. She goes, what happened? He says, everybody laughed at me. So she's like, okay. And then he went to sleep. And then she said, okay, now go again. And every day she sent him to the market with the donkey and the mud and the flowers. And the third day he came home already, and she was like, what's it like? He said, yeah, they're all saying like, oh, here comes that man with the donkey and the mud and the flowers. And by the fourth day, they were like, oh yeah, here he is. Like, he's like our friend. We know him. And, you know, it was like he was used to it. They were used to it. And she's like, now you're ready to go to school. And that's where he started. And I was like, that's such a crazy story. They don't teach that one in school, but they should. It's about overcoming your embarrassment by doing something absolutely ridiculous and just getting used to it. And that's like, you're not going to die. It's okay. It's really deep. I love it so much. So, yeah.
So we're on page 103, attitude towards work. Oh no, we want to finish this part on the top of 103, where he says, we found work that works for our character traits. Okay, we find it. And we want this work by nature, and our body is suited for it, and we're able to tolerate the exertion required for it. We should pursue it, and then we should make it our livelihood. But then what happens? Every job has aspects that are pleasant and difficult. He shouldn't become sick with it, even when it doesn't sufficiently provide for his sustenance. Rather, he should rely on God that he will provide for him with sufficient livelihood his entire life. So remember we said that, right, that divine, like not getting the thing that you wanted might be divine protection. Like he said at the beginning, he's saying, not get the skills, not having the aptitude for the thing that everyone's telling you you should do. That's the divine protection. But once you have your mission, don't give up on it, even when there's parts of it that you're not so good at or you really dislike. Don't give up on it, even in the times where you're not making as much money as you want to, or it doesn't feel like that's where your parnasa is coming from. Because God will provide for you sufficiently your whole life. And the word sufficient, yaspeak in Hebrew. Yaspeak. And the other kind of thought that I had on one of these walks was this concept we have of Hashem nursing us, right? Being our nursing mother. The nursing mother has enough milk, right? Sometimes she has too much milk and it's shooting out all over the place. But sometimes you have a baby that isn't so chubby and fat and this, but they have enough. They have enough and they have exactly the right amount of what they need. And it's not always a blessing to be the mom with so much milk and all the other things, right? But to have enough. And again, it goes back to questioning these constructs of more is better. If I'm not making a ton of money at my job, am I failing? Lala, it looks like you have something you want to add. Maybe. No? Just really get it.
I do. And what about those women who say to themselves, or the nurse says to them, you don't have enough, your baby's not gaining weight?
Right? So thank God we have also formula. Hashem will
Right.
do we say that I had that with my last baby, but I didn't stop nursing him. I still nursed him. I just
Exactly. Exactly. And that's when I get so sad when I work with women and they give up and they stop nursing because they're told that. And then also they just don't give their body a chance to produce more. Because I do believe that there's a psychological impact on what you're telling yourself and this feeling of inadequacy that you're not going to be able to sustain your baby, and they give up. And it makes me before the miracle happens, and it makes me so sad.
Yeah, my youngest, it was a very, very difficult pregnancy, like emotionally and stuff going on in my life. And my body it was funny, like I was holding on to weight and the baby wasn't gaining weight. Just that whole hormonal balance. And I tried eating more, I tried everything holistic. I tried herbs, I tried everything. And in the end I said, okay, this is just what it is. I'm going to keep nursing and he'll start cereal and formula earlier. And that's it. And then waited to start real food. And he was fine. But he still got all the benefits of nursing. He still got some of the breast milk, got some of the nutrients. He got some of the,
and the closeness to you.
And the closeness to me and the bonding and the stuff that's good for his gut health and all those things. He still got it. Okay, so that wasn't. And sometimes, when it comes to work, it's really hard. It's really hard when you feel like you're doing something you love, but you're not being that splash. You're not making that success in some way that you thought you wanted to. Do I stop? Do I go find something else? Right? Maybe it's time for something else. Maybe it is. But if you're doing everything that's meant for you, then maybe it's just timing, right? Sometimes he will always provide for you sufficiently for your entire life. Okay. And this is also where I think when we have extra money and we're being really successful, it's important to invest. It's important to save. It's important to do all those things that are normal ways that Hashem created in nature for the world to work. But when you're not making as much, when you have to take a loan out for your business, or you have to, whatever it is, don't think that means that you're failing, right? Don't take that feedback to mean you're failing, because if you had it, you would do that thing, right? So, and it's just interesting right now with everything going on, thinking to ourselves, well, we're going to go to this family bar mitzvah and we're going to buy tickets, and should we stay longer, and where would we stay, and what would we do if we go longer, but then flying to America for only 5 days just to be there for the bar mitzvah is nice, but like, we've all been going through all this here. If we're already going in, doesn't it make sense to give the kids a break? Yeah, but what about the cost, right? Like, there's always these questions. What about how much school they'll miss? They're already missing so much school. Like, you have these back and forth and these back and forth and these back and forth. It's not so clear cut, right? It's not so clear cut. And it's just, you have to process what are the pleasant aspects? What are the unpleasant aspects? What are the values that are driving these decisions? What matters and what's just societally matters, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. So attitude towards work. Until now, we discussed choosing an occupation. Now the author discusses the attitude we should have towards work in general. When a person's mind and body are occupied with the means of obtaining his livelihood, as well as when he is pursuing those means, he should have in mind that he is doing so in order to fulfill the commandment of the Creator, who instructed man to engage himself in worldly means of obtaining a livelihood, working the land, plowing it, sowing it. As it is written, the Lord took this man and he placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. Similarly, God instructed us to use living creatures for our benefit and food, to build cities and to prepare food for him. He instructed man to marry and cohabitate with a woman for the purpose of bearing children. A person will be rewarded for these actions when his intention in his heart and mind are doing them for the sake of God. He will be rewarded regardless of whether or not he achieves that which he desired. If you eat the toil of your hands, you are praiseworthy, and it is good for you. All your deeds should be for the sake of heaven. Thoughts? Page 106. When his intention is...
I'm just wondering if I have a different version of yours, because mine says something different.
What is
in my book? It says he's instructed to marry a woman and cohabitate with them for the purpose of bearing children.
Right. Did I say something?
Yeah, you said something different. I was like, oh, is it just for bearing children? Is that the only reason for marriage? Is like
that question. Let's look at the footnote.
Because I'm not sure. What did you read? You read something different. I was like, wait, my book says something different than that.
I thought that's what I read, but maybe I didn't read it clearly. It's really interesting, right? Because the purpose is for bearing children, but what's a purpose? Does that mean that's the only reason? Because we learned Adam and Eve, and we have this entire idea of marriage and this family and the family unit, and the marriage was the sin, was where everything came from. It wasn't that they didn't have kids fast enough or they didn't have kids. It's marry the woman, cohabitate for the purpose, right? So he's saying, go make a livelihood for the purpose of serving Hashem. Go and find your mate, and now learn to work together, learn to cohabitate, right? Learn to become one unit, one flesh, one person of different people together, and now bring that good into the world for the purpose of expansion, right? Of expanding love in the world, of expanding connection in the world, of expanding, what have we talked about? Diversity, of expanding diversity in a loving family unit that sees everybody. Because isn't that the whole point of why the Jewish people came from families? They came from couples and then had children. And where we have the problems is when the dynamic, right? Family dynamics and all of these, like, family therapy and all these different therapies that are all about the family, all this stuff, how critical this is to our very purpose in the world.
I think what you said was purpose to serve Hashem, which is exactly what I think of. And I think for you that came out like probably so naturally, rather than the purpose of bearing children.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you said was for the purpose of Hashem, which I'm like, that's yes, totally. I completely agree with that. And I'm like, wait, but my book says something different. And I was like, so I think so it's interesting even that you you automatically, like your brain just automatically said for the purpose of serving Hashem. And I think so, because what happens when you're older and you're not having children anymore?
Right.
There is still purpose in being married.
Yes.
It's not and that would be serving Hashem versus bearing children, having children.
Right. And
like, I don't have to be married anymore. I've finished, done.
Right.
I've had my reward. I've done the children. They've gone off. They're adults. They're doing their thing now. So I think it's interesting that it says the purpose of bearing children. So I did that. So maybe my marriage is just done now.
Right.
I mean, but it's really not. There's still more purpose, obviously.
You found a get out clause.
According to this book. I find it interesting.
Yeah, you can produce my evidence. This is my evidence, my lord. I'm done.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's and it's saying because he instructed him to marry the woman and cohabitate with them. It doesn't say and have children, because actually, and remember, this is also speaking to a man, because a man has an obligation to produce children and a woman doesn't, because a woman cannot be obligated to something that puts her very life at risk, and which childbirth does. And so it's, again, very interesting that he's instructed to marry a woman, cohabitate with them for the purpose of bearing children, which comes after, and I want you to go to work for the purpose of serving me. And then the next line is, and you will be rewarded for these actions, marrying, staying together, right? Or finding your next person, all of those things, whether or not you achieve what you desire. So if you are looking for love in the right places, whether or not you find it, you're rewarded. If you're working on your marriage, whether or not it's still a work in progress till your very last day, you're rewarded. You're rewarded for this intention to bring more light, more love, more truth into the world. And we have to do it through natural means. We have to do it through working. We have to do it through being creative. We have to do it through using our skills. Are we doing that? And again, like when we're in our highest awareness, we are totally doing it for God. When we're in our lowest awareness, that's when we're absorbed into the social construct, into the role, into the moment, into the feeling, right? We're not the awareness of the feeling. We become the feeling. We become like so tied in, right? Hooked in to the outcome, to the moment, to the fight, to the role, to the circumstance. I was reading this. We have 3 minutes left, so we're going to end with this. It was very interesting. I got really into, my friend gave me this series of books, the Throne of Glass series. Really good. If you like psychological and science fiction-y or magic-y, whatever it was, it's a really great series. And all the heroes in this book do not start out as heroes. And the ones who start out as heroes fall very much along the way. And I'm reading this book and it's like, I'm so in this book, and I finish it, and I finished the series, and I opened it. I couldn't wait. I had to get to the next book. I had to start the next book. And I finished it, and I'm like, I really felt like this book was speaking to me, that we're in this time of Mashiach. There's politics, there's craziness, there's all these things. And I'm watching them go through war after war after war in the book, and you're losing main characters left and right. And they're all just like letting on, like, wow, it's like, I know exactly how they feel. You feel like this battle should have been the end of the war. No, this battle should have been the end of the war. No, wait, now there's this whole other character who's had this whole side story, and you're following them. Now they're in this thing. Now they're like a main character in the story. And then this person from 3 books back is now here at the right moment. And they're all, and I was like, whoa. Like, and there were things obviously that were not Jewish in thought, but there was so much of this of like.
Lily, you're going to laugh. I'm going to show you something.
Are you reading this series too?
No, it's something different, but it's so similar. And I just finished it literally minutes before the Shira. It's a Daniel Silva, which is usually kind of trash. And this one was written in 2019, and it predicts almost everything that's happening now. It's so interesting. And it's also like there's a hero who becomes an anti-hero, and it's like the villain is not. And it's an intrigue between Saudi and Israel and Russia and England and the UK. It's very interesting. Spy thriller, obviously. But
it's just crazy. We literally live in like crazy times. Crazy.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, just like this idea that the Beit HaMikdash is going to fall from heaven. Now, it's going to come from really work and negotiate, like all of this hard stuff. Like that's how it's going to come, right? Like it's going to come through us figuring it out and building it and having to figure out all the real things. And I'm like, so Mashiach isn't going to be this leader that is just so charismatic and so amazing and checks everybody's boxes. Like David HaMelech came from like a checkered past, and he didn't check everybody's box his whole life. Like he never was like, wow. Afterwards, he was like, wow. So like, don't wait, don't look, don't be so upset that we don't have this leader right now and we're about to go into stupid political season and like all this stuff. Don't be so scared of the messiness of it and feel like, and again, I know we don't want it to be so messy and we want to be more loving and this, but like, I can do that. I can be more loving. I can be less judgmental, but don't be so disheartened when I see the mess of all the players who are in leadership, because real leaders very often are messy and have dark pasts and have made mistakes and hopefully learn from them. And that was kind of my takeaway from the book, is this, it's messy. We're doing this, it's Bitachon, it's messy, but Hashem is guiding things and giving people different character traits and giving them different struggles and then putting them against each other. And that was my takeaway, which is not so clear, but I think everyone gets it.
No, yeah, I get it. And I've also been studying, I hopped on board with Nachomi. It started again. It's so interesting. I don't know if any of you are doing it. I highly recommend it. The speakers are amazing. So I just finished Yehoshua because I'm catching up. I'm beginning Shoftim, and it literally talks about this, that Shaul was cut such an unexpected choice.
Send in the link to the one you're listening to.
Yeah.
I started one when it started again, and I found a really hard time sticking with it. Like I just
try this one.
Yeah,
try this one. I think you'll all, because we're kind of like-minded. It's amazing because this girl, Esty Kim, I know who she is. She's married to the son of a friend of mine, and she's the daughter of also other friends of mine from London. And she is phenomenal. She made Aliyah to Israel. She became a tour guide. So she brings her other education as a teacher, as a tour guide to her Tanakh. And she says, oh, and this is like that motorway that you'll see as you go past IKEA. Like she brings Yehoshua into today where you're like, what? And you have no, and then she also brings in stuff like these chariots were made out of bronze, and that's because it was the bronze. And like she'll bring like historic facts into it as well, which I would never have known if I just gone through it.
Also, I haven't zoomed out, but thank you guys so much for learning with me. I will see you next.
Thank you, Lily. As always, amazing.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Healthy Trust class. Come back again to visit the Tower of Divine Protection every Sunday. To learn more about living a healthy life, body and soul, visit Lily Aronin at www.lilyaronin.com.